Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will call the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee to order. The first item on our agenda is to approve minutes of our November the 5th committee meeting.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Shaker. Any additions and or corrections? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Mr. Beatty, our county trustee, will give the investment report.
Thank you, ma'am. You can see we didn't have any items that bid last month, so that didn't change, and our rate from LGIP was 0.44%, which was down just a little bit. It's kind of leveled off, so maybe we're near the bottom. Gotta be fair in the year, haven't we?
That's right. Or else we're gonna start giving more away, right?
I had teased one of the banks that if they got any lower, they'd be sending me a bill. So on their last bid, they put a little thing, send $100 with the money.
And you did.
So they didn't get it. Somebody else wanted to pay a little more.
Motion to approve the report. Second.
Commissioner Salmon in the back, Commissioner. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. And Mr. Beatty, you wanted to give us a little more information about the tax collection?
Yes, ma'am. The second page that you have just kind of breaks down percentages and back to 2006 on kind of where we are on tax collections. If you'll look at the 2008 there, the November number, that percentage that's circled, 97.23, that's the percentage collected against the tax roll. So at this point, we've collected 97.23% of the tax roll, which is, as you can see, last year at this point we were at 96.81, and the year before we were at 97.27. So we're right historically where we normally are with 14 months of history. If you look over at the 2009s, we're running a little bit behind. In fact, for the first 2 months, we're down about $303,000 from where we were last year, and that's against a larger tax roll. So as a percent, we're down some. But if you'll note, we were down significantly in the first month of October, up in the month of November, with the exception of 2007, where a mortgage company payment came in and skewed that. So we actually had a very good month in November of prior year and current year taxes. And as Ms. Nolan and I were talking, and Ms. Ely, 2 months is hard to get a real judgment, because one or two checks that come in the first of a month versus the end of a month make a big difference, because we got a check in today from one payment of $125,000. Had it come in one day last week, it would have changed the numbers significantly. But feel like we're down a little bit for this year, but looking at 2008, those collections are still coming in about at historical levels for our tax collections.
Maybe this figure's on here. I see a 99.01 and a 98.43 down there. Where, when you check back 3, 4, 5, 6 years, do we hit the highest we're going to hit for a year?
What we have historically done is we have collected 99 to 99.25% of the taxes before we turn those over to Chancery. Now last year, when we were beginning to see some tough times, and I think the same thing may happen this year, we still collected 98.43, which is good as you look at other counties what they do. But we were down about 0.5% to 0.75% from where we normally are, which becomes a fairly significant number. Now, a lot of those came in pretty quickly when they went to Chancery. We had a really big collection that first month that they were there. Some of those are lots that we're now beginning to see move, where developments just weren't moving and banks are coming in and paying those, and some of those lots are moving and they're paying their taxes. So we've seen, while we turned over more, we saw a lot more collected the first few months that they were in the Chancery Court than we normally see. But my estimation is that as we pull into these last few months of collecting 2008, this last 3% will be a little harder to collect than they've been in prior years. I think we'll get above 98, but I'm not sure we'll get to the 99, and I don't know how to really get that done. I just think with times being tough.
When you close down a year, you never get 100%. You get 99 and 3/4 somewhere along there. Maybe
right, about 99.25 is about the best that we can hope for to get. Some of those will, they'll come in, they're in dispute or whatever, that we'll collect. Some of them will be in bankruptcies. that we have to, they will come in through the bankruptcy court, and it just takes a while for them to come. Some of them will be personal property on businesses that maybe got a business license, never did business, got a forced assessment, and they're small amounts, but there'll be several of them. But they were in an apartment, and they, we got an address in an apartment, and they graduated, and they're gone, and they're $20, $30, and those are really hard to get because they're, we really don't have a forwarding address on
Was
those.
there ever a case history where people are 6 or 7 years behind and suddenly they come in and they want to cut a deal?
We'll continue to get them, and some of them are that old we collect them. We're unable to cut a deal now. The chancellor is the only one that can change that tax roll. We don't have any authority to change that. Once that tax roll is set, that's where it is now. If the chancellor, he's the only one that can make those things change.
You ever know the case where they've done that?
No, sir, not in my time here that they've done that. Normally they collect, and you'll have folks sometimes that left and will come back, or a family member that will come in and say, that was my son's and they're gone and I want to make that right. Sometimes they'll have financial trouble and they'll come in when they can and pay them. That's not unusual for it to be several years and for them to come in. But on the real property, we're going to collect them. The personal property where those businesses are gone, there are no assets, are a little harder, but those liens will stay out there, and we normally get those collected on real property.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Well, some of those, on properties, when they get the notice that they're gonna go for auction or something, they'll come in and pay those also, right?
They will. And a lot of those that don't get paid when it comes that long that we see are estates where somebody died and there's 40 cousins and they don't pay because this cousin's not going to pay and I'm not going to pay because he gets the benefit of me paying, and so I just soon you sell it as me pay $15 and my cousin get the benefit from it. And the reason it takes a while to sell those is you have to notify all those people. For us to sell that, we have to notify everybody who has an interest in that property and have proof that they got notice so they can't come back against who we sell to. And that takes, it just takes quite a bit of time to track down everybody. And there are a lot of those. If you see them long term, very often there's a dispute about title, or it's tied up in a disputed estate. That's the most common thing that we see in those.
Thank you for that information.
If y'all have any other questions, the only comment that I would make is that New Year's Eve will be a holiday for county offices, but the trustee's office will be open for folks who want to make payments on December 31st. So we'll be in the office. It'll be a normal work day for us. Now that became an issue a year or two ago, but we'll be there. So we'll be up. So if you get a call, somebody wanted to pay, we're there. If they didn't find us, they might have gone to the wrong building because we're planning on being there.
New Year's Eve. Like
New
New
Year's
that
Eve.
day and pay them,
Yeah.
just so that
Till 4:30,
Somebody
right?
come.
4:30, 8 to 4:30 in room suite 102 of the courthouse with the clock on the top, the building that we're in. We'll be there. City will be open. We'll be. We get a lot of calls. Where are you? And which building is the courthouse? For those of us who've been here forever, we know, but the building with the clock seems to get them there.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Beatty. Gentlemen, if you will locate your fund condition report, our finance director, Mrs. Nolan, will begin with the development tax report.
Okay. In November, we received $65,250 in development tax. That brings our total for the year $440,250. We are still, okay, we are burning it up.
Shall we?
There's not been a month,
No.
5 months that low since 1996. When we started at $750, not $1,500.
That's really bad.
Moving please to cash balances.
Cash balance totaled $133,207,000 at the end of the month, with $96,908,759 being operating funds, $36,299,000 being borrowed funds. If you would look at the debt service fund, you see quite an increase. In November of 2008, we borrowed $10 million out of the debt service fund to as a interfund transfer to begin some construction on the schools. If you remember back then, we had some issues happening in the bond market, so we delayed the borrowing. So I just want to let you add about 10 million to the 2008 numbers when you compare forward.
What's the tennis court thing down
Okay, the tennis courts, we are done. We're at the county has paid all their share. This negative number is, we've billed the city for their portion they had. It will be in this month that you'll see that collection. So that will go away at the end of December.
So that's money the city owes, that 53.
That between the city of Murfreesboro, and then there's a small portion coming from the schools. And actually, we got part of the schools today. We got another bill. We got that. Okay, so we're hoping all that'll take care of itself in December.
And then we're gonna make a lot of changes.
We're gonna make some changes. The school board's gonna be making some changes in the accounts that you're gonna see, that Stewart's Creek Middle School, $312,655. That money is from the sale of the property at Stewart's Creek to Smyrna. That was the profit that we made after paying off what we owed. They're also at the bottom, Future High School, they're going to be touching that number, 422,788, and then some various and sundry smaller accounts too. So hopefully we're going to clean up a lot of this. This may not, I know one of these numbers that probably is not in their number, but I would ask that that you consider us rolling these numbers too. That 117.33, that is in Laverne Elementary School. If we can roll that into their numbers too. And the $100 and the 109 and the 70 cents. Is that, as you're concerned, that if we can also blend those in and close those out.
Get them off the book.
Yes, we have 60 cents in the court center. We might even blend that into the workhouse.
Go back to development tax.
60 cents.
Any questions about cash balances?
Okay, then you've got on your, the
Our-
revenue review.
Our monthly revenue report.
Yeah, so this is your comparison, so you can see about where we are at the end of November compared to where we were in the 5 previous years. If you go to this page that's like a half a page, what I did is for a comparison, if you know, for the last 5 years, the ambulance operations were included in the general fund. And this is the first year where the ambulance is separated. So this last bit is where I've combined the two so you can compare those two activities to the last 5 years. Little stars just indicate those lines that are less than what they were in previous years. And Mr. Beatty mentioned about the property tax being a little slower. Wheel tax in November was a little less, but by December, we've got the payment from the clerk's office, it's just a little higher than what it was last year. So then sales tax, that really has an effect on the schools. We just, at the end of November, as far as this is concerned, it was down about 7 1/3%. But after the receipt of the sales tax today, for the schools will be about 6% less once we look at this at the end of December.
Any questions or comments for Mrs. Nolan concerning any part of her report?
I'm going to go back to the sales tax just to kind of give you an indication. Now I'm just comparing November collections to November last year. And this is everybody in the county, not just Rutherford County, but the cities. We collected almost, or not quite 1% of what we did last year. Now that compares to the other months that we were down like 9 9.6, down 5.5, 7.5. So as Dr. Penn put it, this month is significantly less negative.
We're within 1% of what we were last year.
No,
For that
no,
1 month.
1 month.
For
For
that
that
one.
One month.
That one
So
month. Compare
overall-
month to month.
5
So-
months, we're 6% down.
Yes.
Yeah, but we're talking about comparing November to November.
Right.
November to November, we're just down slightly less than 1.
So that's
That's an
that's an
improvement.
improvement.
As I said, when October to October, it was down 9.6.
What's the biggest month?
The worst month was
Oh.
last month.
What is the biggest volume month?
The biggest volume
December, I
month,
would
it's
think?
December, it's,
Reported in January.
we will
November
get it in
next year.
February.
Right.
The
So
January,
we're
the
trending
December
up at a
sales.
better time then, because we're getting toward our,
This is October
month.
sales.
Mhm.
This that I've got is through October, so. I try to give, say, are you saying it's getting better? Significantly
a little
less.
more in February.
Of course,
Significantly
last year
less
was down
negative.
already too, so
Yes,
Yeah.
from the previous
it's
year.
worse.
Yes. Which, this has the biggest impact with schools.
And we budgeted that to be flat,
Oh,
or down a little, or,
It's
Up
about,
a half,
it's about 0.5 to 1% more than last year's actual collections.
that's what the budget
so
was.
we're talking about, that's what the budget was.
So
If you stay at 6% below, if that doesn't change,
We've got a problem.
we're off at 1.8 million on the school budget for sales tax.
Gentlemen, any further discussion on the fund condition report?
So for 6 months, well, actually for 5 months,
5
then
months.
we're down 5%.
We're down 6%.
We're down 6.
We're down 6%.
Now, dollar-wise, let me see if I can find that. Dollar-wise, that was, the schools, county schools were at about 15.5 million for those months compared to 14.5 where we are today.
Make a motion to approve report.
Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Sanders. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thanks. Our insurance report, Mrs. Miller. Gentlemen, if you will locate your documents for the insurance report, Mrs. Miller will start with the financials.
Okay, we'll go over the medical first, and we had a pretty rough month in the month of November for our medical claims. So I started checking into the large claims again, as I did last year, and we have had 65 large claims already this year. That's defined as claims over $25,000, and at an average of $53,000 for each of those. We have none approaching the pool as yet. The highest amount that we have is not quite $200,000, and we don't start using excess insurance until $380,000. So it'll be a while. Hopefully we won't have any that get that high. But if you compare that to last year, we had 54 at this time, but their average was slightly higher. So again, the month of November was a difficult month, but I'll explain that a little bit further in just a moment. If you look at the Care Here comparison, the per employee per month for the 5-month year over year, you do see some volatility in there, but those numbers actually come out pretty equal. And for the total per employee per month core plan costs, which includes your medical, your dental, and your vision, you can see the effect of the month of November in there. And our GASB liability is at $22.4 million through November. Now, if you'll go to the next page for the backup, let me do some explanation of the numbers that you're seeing. If you notice, the October self-funded claims were about 2.6 million, and the November self-funded claims were 3.9. That explains why there's this huge jump in the numbers for the month of November. But these are actually dollars that have gone through our bank account, and we have a little bit of a timing anomaly happening here. The actual checks cut were much closer each month, but what happened was there were a significant number of checks cut at the end of October that didn't actually go through the bank account until November. So it's a little smoother than it looks. Did have a bad month in November, but actually in October, that's when the claims were incurred, and it would have smoothed out a lot if they had gone through the bank account
Yeah, that's right.
quickly so that they showed. Also on the November line, you'll see that under admin and premium, there was a pretty good jump there in that dollar figure up to $332,000. And what that included was 3 months of vision premium that had been erroneously booked to a wrong account. We had to get it moved back over to this account. So that's why there's a jump in that number as well. All of that combined caused our per employee per month for the month of November to rise to $902 versus pretty steady in the 600s. But when you take that 5-month average of $681 over the 5 months that we've had so far, and you compare that to the first 5 months of the last year, we're only 0.5% above where we were for the same time period last year. So it's, even though it's bumping around a little bit in there, it's not nearly as scary as it looks when you just look at the 1 month by itself. And if you look across to the far right side of the page, that includes all of the medical, dental, vision, and care here costs. And if we compare our per employee per month for the first 5 months of roughly $712 to last year's same time period, it was about $707. And again, we're only up by 0.7%. So the volatility is a little bit disconcerting, but I think we're still in pretty good shape compared to last year.
And that's an average per employee, but if you go back to what you were talking about prior there, where you averaged 681, was 0.5% up, is that not could be caused because of more employees, or is this on a per employee?
It's a per employee basis as
Okay.
well. Yeah, both of those columns are per employee. The first column does not include the care here costs, and then the second column does.
Okay.
Lois, Elaine brought up too that you had 5 Mondays in November too.
That's when
That's-
we wire the money is on Monday.
Okay,
So I
so
had
that's-
an additional Monday in there.
That's the checks then the carrier issued at the end of October, and they rolled out of our bank account on the first part of November. So
The 65 large claims, are they diseases or? I mean, well, I guess they are
Yeah.
diseases.
I've asked for a
But
diagnosis report so that I can check into what's driving them. Last year I watched it very closely, and it's almost all chronic type issues. Pretty high prevalence of cancer claims, but heart disease, diabetes, those types of
now,
claims.
would car accidents come in this?
Car accidents would run through here first, but then there would be every effort made to subrogate back against any insurance carrier that might be able to be attached to for that.
Okay.
Okay, if we'll move to the work injury performance report, we did have sort of a high month for the month of November, but it was not as high as the same month last year, so it was up both years, year over year. And if you look down below at the breakout between workers' comp and OJI costs, you'll see that, again, we're seeing what we would expect to see, that the workers' comp costs are slightly lower than the OJI costs, and the OJI costs should continue to grow while the workers' comp costs drop. And then if you look at the actual numbers that make up the report, in the year-to-date box, you'll see that the first 5 months of the current fiscal year versus the first 5 months of last year, we are at roughly 64.12% of the same time period last year. So actually claims are favorable.
Any discussion or questions for Mrs. Miller on the financials?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Braun, seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Mrs. Miller will present a recommendation from the Insurance Committee to renew a contract with CCMSI.
CCMSI stands for Cochrane Claim Management Services Incorporated. They are our third-party administrator, and we also use them for our brokerage services for our on-the-job injury programs and the property and casualty programs. To include the brokerage part is what goes out and gets us our insurance coverage. And this particular renewal is for the actual fees of the third-party administrator contract, and the renewal is favorable with a very small decrease in our technological fees. We've had a long-term relationship with CCMSI. They've had our account for many years. We did go out to bid in 2007, and their service was bid for a 3-year contract with the possibility of 2 one-year extensions. They were awarded the TPA and brokerage contract for the property and casualty, and that's also when we added the workers' comp and OJI to their contract. The administrative costs for the initial 3-year period were held flat, so we haven't reviewed their fees in that 3 years because they've remained the same price. The brokerage services yield a significant drop in our casualty premiums back in 07-08 when we did the bid, and those premiums have remained low in the subsequent years. I think you'll recall when we saw that huge decrease in premiums, we had a little bit of discussion around whether we thought that was something that we would expect to continue, and we had hoped so, and we have. We've seen that continue through the 3 years. Also, CCMSI has helped us with our transition from a workers' compensation model to an on-the-job injury model, which happened at 1/1 of this year. They handle several other on-the-job injury accounts in Tennessee and Texas, and they have a familiarity with the program, so their experience in this area has been very valuable to us. And in addition to adjudicating and directing the on-the-job injury claims, they also employ a PPO model that allows us to get additional savings on those claims. So given the success of the current programs that we use them to administer, the quality of the service that we have enjoyed, and the consistency of low rates while receiving high quality insurance carriers, combined with the strength of the renewal, the insurance committee recommended extending their contract for the first of the 2 one-year extensions. So that would extend the contract from 7/1/2010 through 6/30/2011. And the next page is simply an illustration of the fees. You'll see that they have held their fees flat for a 4th year, with the exception of the SCHIP administration, which is just a little bit further down, and that has dropped $1,000. The overall decrease in the fee structure is roughly 1%. And I also put in the year-over-year premium illustration so that you could see what CCMSI has managed to do for us for our insurance premiums. When we first bid the contract, we were approaching $1.5 million in insurance premiums. And when they came on board, that dropped to almost $1 million. It went up slightly in 2008-2009 and back down to about $1,044,000 in this most recent year, which was a decrease. During that time period, we've experienced some pretty phenomenal growth in our property amounts, and so our property exposures have gone up year over year, as have our payroll exposures. And so while our exposures were increasing, they've managed to hold the premiums flat and decrease. So they have definitely shown good service in that area.
I move to extend the contract.
Second.
Commissioner Bullen, seconded by Commissioner P. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. The next item is a recommendation from the Insurance Committee to amend our health insurance summary plan document as a result of a federal law.
We have another new law that's going into effect on 1/1/2010. It's a federal law, and it provides for the continuation of dependent coverage for college students who would otherwise lose their eligibility because of a reduction in their full-time class status for a medically necessary leave of absence from school. The law is named Michelle's Law. It's in memory of a young lady named Michelle Morse. And it applies to almost all insured and self-insured group health plans that cover dependents and use student status to determine eligibility, and that includes us, so we are included in the requirement. Michelle was a college student and was diagnosed with colon cancer, and when she had to have a strenuous treatment schedule, she was advised by her doctors to take time off from school. However, her parents checked into the costs of COBRA and realized that it was unaffordable, so she continued to take a full-time course load in an effort to maintain her health insurance coverage. Unfortunately, she did pass away, And her case was taken to the New Hampshire legislature, which passed this law, and then it was taken on to the House of Representatives, and the law passed in 2008. So in order to comply with Michelle's law, which, like I said, will be effective for 1/1/2010, we have to change our summary plan description, and if you'll bear with me, I'll read you the language that we need to insert. Michelle's law requires coverage for student medical leaves that start after the effective date of the law. The law applies to all medical and dental plans, including pharmacy and behavioral health, regardless of funding. The law requires plans which cover students to maintain coverage on the dependent if the child's status as a student ceases due to a medically necessary leave of absence. Written certification stating that the child is suffering from a serious illness or injury and that the leave of absence is medically necessary must be submitted from the attending physician. In order to qualify for medical leave of absence, students must be enrolled in post-secondary educational institution as defined under eligible dependent, and it refers you back to that appropriate language in the summary plan description. Coverage will not terminate if the dependent student ceases to satisfy the student definition under the plan due to a medically necessary leave of absence, provided the student was enrolled in the plan on the day before the medical leave started and the leave is considered to be medically necessary as defined below. Medically necessary leave of absence means a leave of absence of a child from a post-secondary educational institution or any other change in enrollment of the child at the institution that 1. starts while a child is suffering from a serious illness or injury, 2. is medically necessary, and 3. causes the child to lose student status under the terms of the plan. The dependent student's coverage will continue until the earlier of A, the date that is 1 year after the first day of the medically necessary leave of absence, or B, the date coverage would otherwise terminate under the terms of the plan, such as the parent's termination of employment or death, marriage of the child, or the child reaches the student limiting age, etc. The dependent child's coverage will be the same coverage in effect for the child on the day before the start of the leave. If coverage changes for any reason, the child's coverage changes along with the parent's coverage, provided the changed or new coverage also covers students. The child must remain covered under the new coverage for the remainder of the applicable period.
Thank you, Commissioner Jordan.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jordan.
Federal government sending any money to pay for that?
No, and I'll tell you, I wasn't able to price this for you either. Usually I try to come in and tell you what the estimated cost would be. The prevalence of something like this happening is extremely rare. College students are generally the most healthy people we have on our plan and very rarely incur any claims. But so I can't tell you how often this will be an issue, but when it does happen, it's more than likely going to be a costly claim.
What is the cutoff date for students now?
College
20?
students up to age 25.
Keeps going up.
It's been that way for a while now for us. It's 19 if they don't go to college and 25 if they do.
As long as they're a student.
Right.
Well, back in some of our days, it was 18 and 22.
Oh, okay.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen.
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan.
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Gentlemen, if you will turn to section 3 in your notebook, we will start with the general fund budget amendments, and Mrs. Miller has 2 budget amendments to present. And if I do not hear otherwise, Mrs. Miller, if you'll just present both of them, we'll take them as one vote.
Okay. The first one is relating to moving some money from my postal and board and committee member fees lines into my part-time personnel line. When I prepared the budget last year, I had a 50% error in my part-time personnel. It was made during the budget process, and I need to fix this error in order to keep my wellness coordinator working. I do have additional dollars available in my postage line because open enrollment mailings were paid for by our voluntary carrier, and I also have additional dollars available in the board and committee member fees because there will only be 10 insurance committee meetings this fiscal year. So the additional difference will be made up by less working time for the part-time employee. So she's going to take time off in order to cover part of this, but the rest of it I do have in other areas of my budget that I can use. The subsequent one is simply an effort to move $1,100 from, it came in as a contribution, and I need to move it back into my other charges line. This is because when Cigna bid our medical insurance contract, they allowed us to spend $10,000 a year on wellness, but they require that we provide them with a receipt before they will reimburse us. And this money was spent to help make the Employee Appreciation Day a success, but we had to take the receipt and give it back to Cigna. The way it has to be received in is through the contributions and gifts line before it can be returned back to the other charges line within my budget.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Mrs. Miller, thank you. We have a budget amendment from domestic violence. Mrs. Phone.
I am requesting a one-time budget amendment for a copy machine. The copy machine I have we've had since 2002, and apparently it's not doing well, and I've had lots of service calls, and they recommended I get a new one. I have the Victim Services Fund that has about $170,000 surplus in it, or reserve, and I just want to do one-time amendment out of there to purchase the copy machine in a new contract.
I would approve.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan and seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Thank you very much. From juvenile detention, Mrs. Jude. Hello.
Tonight I have a budget amendment that is within our original budget. I'm asking to move $3,877 from 3 separate line items into, excuse me, I've got that backwards. I'm taking the $3,877 from training and putting it into mainly the part-time personnel, and then Social Security and employer Medicare for the benefits part of it. I've had an incredible amount of sick leave and FMLA this year, and we got to looking at our schedules, and the last time that we had a fully trained staff was back in April of 2009. Since then, we've been filling in with part-time, and I need to put that money back in there to take care of my part-time employees.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner P. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Staying in section 3, we have an ambulance service fund budget amendment, and I don't see anyone here from the ambulance service, but you can see from the budget document, they have received checks for medical coverage, and also another separate check for special operations rescue class, and then they want to transfer $600 from an overtime line item to their travel account. Commissioner Bullen, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen, Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Gentlemen, if you will locate this beautiful booklet here that is generated by the Inventory Controlled Fixed Asset Department. This is Mr. Ted Lindsay, and he comes to visit us every year about this time. It'll take him just a couple of seconds, he says, to set up his equipment. and then he will give his annual report.
While he's doing that, you want to just talk about number 8, because it's nothing?
Good idea. While he is doing that, gentlemen, if you'll take a look at number 8, item 8 on your agenda, that was deferred at last month's committee meeting. That has to do with a discussion of financing of the occupancy sensors for the Rutherford County school system. That will need no action tonight. We still have not received the loan agreements from the state. So we'll just put that back on the agenda when we have received those agreements. So number 8 can be deleted from our agenda tonight.
That is the discussion.
It will just, we'll just put it back on the agenda when we get those documents.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm here to present the yearly annual report for fixed assets for 2008-2009. We have a couple things real quick that I just want to run through here for our year in review summary. This year we completed 63 inventories of schools and county general departments. That was the most that we've done in any year. And this wasn't a competition. This wasn't, we weren't setting out to get the most done. It just happened that way. We had a lot of good support from the schools and other departments, as you'll see in the results that we'll cover a little bit later. So we had a lot of good participation and got a lot of it done, and we just happened, that's just kind of how it happened to flow this year. We got a few more done, which was terrific. We have 2 new policy changes in place. This year we worked very closely with some of the CTAS staff and early implemented GASB 51, which was intangible asset capitalization. So we got that into.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you. I had a small part in that. And then we also, another little smaller thing with the auditors, we actually went in and broke these schools down into function in our GASB reporting at the end of the year, which I'll show you guys a little bit of what that entails. Just really simply just kind of redistributing some of the numbers and showing that. We also, yes, sir.
At the bottom of the page, it says we had inventories. There are 42 assets that have been classified as missing.
Yes, sir.
For a grand total of $1,655. Doesn't that sum up the report that this is a grand report? That what all these pages basically tell us is there's only $1,600 worth of stuff missing, and that was probably junk that they lost. Isn't that the summary of this report?
In a nutshell, that's what I tried to do with this initial page. So yes, and we'll get into some of those, maybe some more of those details here in just a moment. In the financial schedules, just briefly, just want to show you some of these numbers, where these are coming from, and you'll find these in your book. We had a decrease of $22 million in construction of progress, and this was due to the completion of the Ag Extension Phase 2 and the Correctional Work Center project, which you will see there. Those values went into buildings and improvements, and that increased by $27 million, which we'll see there. Overall, the total value of county-owned assets before depreciation is $332 million. When you take away the depreciation, that gives us for all county general assets $257 million, which you will find there. For schools, the same sort of layout. As well, we have a lot of construction in progress that had finished out. Browns Chapel, Homer Pittard, some work there. Those were additions, actually. Some of the construction in progress decreases were the Rockville Middle, the new facility there, the Oakland High School, Riverdale High School additions that were completed, some work at Christiana Elementary School and Buchanan Elementary renovations, which you will find there. And those where those numbers go into play. $473 million in total value before depreciation, and $386 million after you depreciate those items that are depreciable. This basically gives a lot of those same numbers. It just breaks them down into function. Finance, administration of justice, public health and welfare, public safety, and that sort of thing. As well, you will notice in the middle, the Rutherford County Schools is broken down into 3 sections: instruction, support services, and operation of non-instructional services. That number, $332 million, is the same numbers as our other chart. That's what our assets total for the year before depreciation. That is our accumulated depreciation for the year for County General, $75 million. For schools, it's $473 million before depreciation, and accumulated depreciation is $87 million. The summary graphs just puts in a nice little chart for us so that we can actually see these numbers in play. The top one, County General, you can see infrastructure, buildings, intangible assets, which are going to be software. You're going to see a little bit of the right-of-way roads in those intangible assets. Land, other assets, construction progress make out the top there. For schools, the majority of those costs are in the buildings, which is no surprise, really. When we take just County General and we split it up by the function, by highway, agriculture, health and welfare, you can see how it lays out there, with highway having a huge chunk of the pie, public safety and general administration having other large pieces. With schools, support services is kind of pretty much everybody. Instruction is going to be more of the software that you'll find in the schools, some of the things that are loaded up onto the servers, A+ skill path software and that sort of thing. The non-instructional services are more going to be cafeteria, equipment, and those sort of things. But the majority, buildings, most of the items that we'll see on a day-to-day basis will be in support services.
But they're still considered, a building's considered intangible asset.
No, building would be a tangible.
That's what I would think, okay.
Yeah. The intangibles are all the things that just you can't really put your hands on, can't really touch.
I'm misreading your graph.
Yeah, there's a small little piece in there that you can't really see. That's what it is. When we take everyone together, buildings makes the majority of the assets cost for our pie. A little bit in the infrastructure for roads, a few for intangible assets, which a lot of that is going to be right of way. Then when we take when we just look at schools, county general, and highway, that's what this pie will make. The schools have 60% of our asset value, and highway and county general are very close. Now for the inventory results. So here we had 49 schools and departments with 100% accountability. Of those were 17 schools, 4 school departments, and 28 county general departments. The average for everyone, not at 100%, everyone else was 98.5% accountability. And we had 6 schools that were under that average point, 98.5. And you will see them listed there on the side. Overall, I think everyone did fairly well. We had a few that were a little bit lower for various and different reasons, but overall we had, I believe this is a record number at 100%, and I've never seen almost everybody but one department in county general get 100%. So this was, I think we're doing very well to see numbers this high. As in years past where we'd see maybe only 1 or 2 100%. And missing assets. And these, just to remind you, these are those that we haven't seen into inventories. We go to a school and we don't see a computer. We'll tag that as, we'll deem that as remaining, and we'll look for it the next year. If we don't see it that next year, then that will be something that we'll call missing, and then we will take those off the books and then report those to you. These are the missing assets that we have for this year. And I believe there's 42 of them. Yes. And this chart gives you the location. All these were at our local schools. We have the asset number that we look for, what the category is, that's the description. The creation date that we have there was when we first saw it and entered it into the system. The purchase price and the depreciated amount is, like I've said in years past, is I kind of use that as a usage amount. That's what the value would be left in that asset. So by looking at these, the total purchase price of these items, $33,845.92. When you take in depreciation and look at that amount, that's $1,600. So that's pretty good usage. We're looking at well over 90%, I think 95% usage rate. Aside from one or two of these items, these are all pretty worn out.
How long has that lathe been missing?
The lathe?
Probably no more than 2 years.
A couple of years.
Like a mirror item, that'd be.
Looks like a lot of these are shop equipment.
Yeah.
Metal bender, jigsaw. Another one. Metal saw, grinder, metal cutter, corner sheet.
Did they have a turnover in their shop department? Or did they?
Yeah.
They had a lot of construction.
This was about the time that Laverne Middle was constructed, and there was, I think, another school. And there were some turnover. They're not exactly sure what happened, but these items were over in there's a back little bay area, and they went missing. They were in there one day, and the next they weren't. So as we're checking for them, we never found them. And we've searched the school. So
In the time period of all these, they went from well, they'd already lost 9th grade. They went from a 3rd through 8th, and now they're down to a 3rd through 5th. So I doubt if there's much shop there now, is there? Like 5th grade?
no, I don't think so.
Well, you can imagine.
Right.
Well, these items were 88, 91, 88, 91, 92, 93 year of creation date. That stuff's 20 years old. It's good to be a bookkeeping issue to some extent. Although it all left at once, makes you wonder.
Well,
Right.
I would say it had a lot to do with.
Our preference, of course, is if they want to get rid of it, we offer a surplus list every year, and to give us those items on that surplus list, and then from there, if another school could use it, they certainly could transfer it. We give them the opportunity to. We also give County General the opportunity to transfer that. Of course, giving schools, if it's from a school, we give them the first priority. But if no one wants to transfer it, then they can send it on and actually bid it off and sell it. So if this was something that was in working condition, could have made a little bit of money for the schools. So there's that to look at as well. What could we potentially have lost there in sales?
Good job.
Those are the missing assets. This is just a chart just to basically show you the last 5 years of what we've had. You can see there at the bottom the numbers that I've told to you. We've had a decrease over the last couple of years, 74% from 2006, 2007, which is terrific. And we also, like I said earlier, we had a usage rate, I think, of 94%, somewhere in there. This is over 90 for the 3rd straight year, which is terrific. So most of the assets are, well worn. It's not like we're getting a few new projectors and then they're turning around the next day. These are older, so this could be a surplusing issue, and we're still working really closely with the schools to make sure that we're getting, these items. And hopefully, with doing the other thing we're doing is another surplus list, one in the fall and one in the spring. So hopefully this can cut down on some of the storage and maybe cut down on some of these missing that we have. So, any other questions or comments?
I just want to make a comment that especially in the schools, from what they were to what this is amazing that they've done that well. I know we suggested that they put the same policies in place at the schools that we're having 100% retention. Looks like they did that. So my hat's off to the school system, especially. Of course, County General is almost 100% everywhere, so that's wonderful.
Madam Chairman, this is a marvelous report with splendid results. I move we commend Mr. Lindsay and approve this report, and on behalf of the county, I present these back to you for the archive.
Thank you, sir. Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Sandlin.
Any further discussion? Mr. Sandy, did you want to make a comment? Okay, excuse me, okay. We don't need a roll call. Do we do?
He puts it in their
But
boxes.
these doesn't have to be on the agenda.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So he just puts everyone, okay. All in favor, please say aye. Thank you. And you do put a copy of this in all the commissioners' mailboxes, right? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Sandvik and Mr. Clardy, if you'll join us, please. Gentlemen, we need to be in section 6 of our notebooks. And for your information, that first page has to do with the energy management system, and we'll come back to that at a later date. We'll start, Mr. Sandvig, with your general purpose school fund budget amendments. And if I hear no objection from the committee members, if you'll go through your GPS budget amendments, we'll take those as one vote, and then we'll start with your building fund as a second vote.
The first GP amendment is a grant from the Jennings Jones Foundation to help support the virtual enterprise program, which we have. It's part of the vocational education program. This amendment budgets the 2009-10 grant of $20,000 from the Jennings and Rebecca Jones Foundation for the virtual enterprise program. The $12,000 in the general purpose school fund balance is left from the 08-09 budget. We're amending that out of fund balance. And then it also, of course, budgets are related to $32,000 in expenditures. And these funds will be used to build a stronger virtual enterprises international network in Tennessee by providing professional development to facilitate student learning. Our recommended motion is to amend $20,000 in revenue to account $44,570 for the 2009-10 grant from the Jennings and Rebecca Jones Foundation, to amend the remaining $12,000 from the GPS school fund balance that is left from the 08-09 budget, and the related $32,000 in expenditures to help support the virtual enterprise program as presented.
Any discussion or question on this motion? Okay, if you will continue, please.
The second amendment is for coordinated school health. It reallocates $2,300 in ERA coordinated school health expenditures from $72,120,499 other materials and supplies to $72,120,370 substitute teachers. These subs will be used to cover classes while teachers get training for the Michigan model, which is a curriculum that will be integrated into at least 16 of our schools this year. And the Michigan model has to do with health, wellness, exercise, all of that. Our recommended motion is to amend $2,300 in ERA coordinated school health expenditures from $72,120,499 other materials and supplies to $72,120,370 substitute teachers as presented.
Questions or comments? Okay, we'll go to number 3.
All right. The third one is the transfer for temporary funding of federal programs. On October 15, 2009, the school board and the county commission approved a $1 million transfer resolution in order to loan up to $1 million from the general purpose school fund balance to the school system's federal projects fund. Because of an interpretation by audit, we used to do an informal transfer on those occasions when it was needed. we now have to do a formal transfer. This $1 million transfer shall remain in the Federal Projects Fund as a designated fund balance from the GPS school fund balance and may be repaid at any time as noted in a resolution passed by the Board of Ed and the County Commission.
So we really have already approved this idea, but what we're doing tonight is budgeting.
The
it.
budgetary cleanup
Yes.
for it, yes, ma'am. And, yes, as you said, it's the budgetary cleanup, and our recommended motion is to amend $1 million from the general purpose school fund balance and to budget $1 million in transfers to other funds for the federal projects, and that should be 142. No, I'm sorry. No, that's fine. My number's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And federal projects meaning,
There's another fund, if you look on your fund condition report, you'll see 142 federal funds, and that is the money that's coming directly from the funds or through the state. It's all federal funds, and they are accounted separately than the operating funds. And a lot of it is used, well, you're accounting for all the ARA money in there.
Well, no, not all.
I said some of it, well,
Yeah,
some of it is in
yeah.
there, but then there's, for years and years and years, you've had federal money coming through for the schools. Vocational.
so it's an in and out account, but you have to have it designated
Well, the problem,
over here with it being federal monies.
right, we have to
Instead
keep
of
it separate.
Second, that's all it is a
Right.
bookkeeping.
And then this, because of how we're reimbursed, we will be short of cash.
Yeah.
There's payroll or things that have to be spent, and we're reimbursable. They're reimbursable grants. We have to spend it before we get it from them.
And we can only apply like 3 days before checks are going to be cut. There are all sorts of rules. They've really tightened up to make sure systems aren't holding too much. So
What
we,
causes
at
us
times,
is having a
have
shortage of
deficit more
cash.
often.
Number 4.
The fourth amendment is for the special ed high-cost students. And we, most years, have to do this amendment. The system has received an additional $19,709 from the state to partially reimburse us for certain high-cost special ed students that we educated last year. This year's figure also includes some funds for high-cost preschool students. These funds must be amended into the current year's budget for special ed expenditures. The expenditures will be for special ed teacher pay and benefits in function 71,200 special ed and function 73,400 preschool. And the recommended motion is to amend $14,874 in IDEA revenues and the related expenditures for special ed teachers, and to amend $4,835 in preschool revenue and the related expenditures for preschool teachers as presented.
I move to accept the 4 amendments as presented.
Commissioner Bullock, seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Commissioner Schaefer.
On the special education funds, if you hadn't got, if the school board hadn't received that 19,000 some odd, what would you have done?
But
So now what are you going to do? Are you
Well,
going to hire more special ed teachers?
we just have to budget it. And I put an estimate in for this number each year. Last year's estimate, I was a little high, because when we're doing the budget, we don't know. We don't know what the reimbursement percentage will be. That varies from year to year. And we don't know, we can still have some high-cost kids come in or go out of the system at that point. But these are funds, the expenditures that generate this money, we pay for them out of the GPS budget because we will get some partial funding back from the state. If we paid for them out of the federal project, we will get none of this money. So it's something we wouldn't get if we didn't do it that way. And we'd still spend it out of the federal. So.
Any further discussion on the GPS fund budget amendments? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen.
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan.
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Mr. Sandig, continuing with the school building program budget amendments.
The first amendment is a project cleanup amendment. And some of these amendments, some of the projects will be addressed by more than one amendment, but I broke it into pieces, trying to make it a little more clear. We are reallocating existing funds within the following projects. These funds are already in the budget for that project. We're moving them to another line item within that project's budget.
So they are not moving away from those projects?
No, no new funds, no funds being moved to another project. Rockvale Middle School, $1,600. Browns Chapel Elementary, $1,445,205. That amount is large. Whitworth, Buchanan, and Oakland Middle are large because we're doing the initial separation, pulling the furniture, fixtures, equipment, technology out of the one number that y'all approved initially. Christiana.
Why is that?
That's just the way we have moved toward doing. Several years ago, we go through 3 and 4 rounds of amendments, refining furnitures, fixtures, and equipment as the POs were issued. So we've started working just with a total number, and then we amend it as we move on with the project. And it's in one school, just the way the bid prices will come in, we'll spend a bit more on the furniture and a bit less on equipment. Vice versa 2 years later. So we were just amending all the time, but we stay within that total budget for furnitures, equipment, fixtures, and technology as much as we can. The Christiana Elementary renovation, $43,356. Whitworth Buchanan Middle, $5,960,928. Oakland Middle, $3,449,134. And also at Whitworth Buchanan and Oakland, we're separating the architect's fees, engineering fees, and site development from that initial budget number. Our recommended motion is to amend as presented the 5 building program projects and the amounts which reallocate existing budgeted funds to other accounts within each project.
Any questions for Mr. Sandig on this project cleanup motion? Okay.
So these are in our fund balances here that we just went over.
I think if you look at this, to me, this lays it out a little better so you can see what each budget was and what some of these changes are.
Which page
Oh,
is
we don't
that?
have that.
Yes, it's in the back. You have that.
You've got the detail.
What page is that on?
Well, I see.
Page 7.
Page 7 is the best number to look at.
9.
No.
9.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misread my volume.
You can see why.
As long as we're staying within the same total number, because our number's always lock and key, you know, as long as we're staying with it, we're just moving within the.
Right, and that's
funds.
kind of what he's separating
Yeah.
out. So these are just the cleanups and getting within the budget, all the,
Really, the
numbers
same
are correct.
thing is you get paid every month, you divide it up, you pay the mortgage or. So we're paying our technology, furniture and equipment, we're putting it in those line items so we can draw against it as we buy the stuff. We're moving out of the big number into other costs.
Any further discussion on that motion? Okay, Mr. Sandvig, if you'll go to the second one.
The second one, I decided to do this separately from the first one because it just addresses the furniture, fixtures, equipment, and technology at Oakland and Whitworth Buchanan Middle Schools. This amendment takes $2,245,000 from that existing funding and uses it to cover furniture, equipment, technology, phones, and the library book budgets for both Oakland and Whitworth Buchanan. The funds were originally in the budget for that project. It's just moving them into the proper line item. And these amounts I am basing on the expenditures that we actually had at Rockdale Middle. We haven't seen too much swing in our bid prices, so hopefully they will be fairly accurate. The recommended motion is to amend $2,425,000 from the construction budget for both Oakland and Whitworth Buchanan middle schools to budget the furniture, equipment, technology, phones, and library books as presented. And that is on page 10, if you want to see the details. Oh. Okay, I don't need to read any more numbers.
You want to take these two separate from the third one? Third one might be a little bit more controversial. I'll make a motion to approve the first two.
Second. We have a motion for the first two motions made by Commissioner Jordan and seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Any discussion or questions for Mr. Sandvig and or Mr. Clardy on those two motions?
Well, the only thing I'm just thinking like Brown Chapel, for instance. I mean, you know, it's 6 months down the road, the school's already open. You're just saying the bills hadn't been paid.
No, no, they've been paid. It's just everything is in one line item. Everything is budgeted in one line item. We pay out of the correct category. So this is taking and just making the budget correct out of the one line item to how it was spent. Right. But we've paid the bill.
And again, Commissioners, 5-6 schools ago, we were amending the furniture, equipment, technology items 3 and 4 times at some schools.
Right.
We're staying within that total dollar amount for that piece of the project.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have kind of moved to doing it as, a cleanup when we got a better idea.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
I brought Mr. Clardy for the third one.
May I ask a question before we start? Since the Oakland Middle Schools were mentioned there, did the weather affect the continuing construction at those two sites?
We have had a tough time with the weather, with all the rain that we've got. And I believe last month we were 11 inches ahead of the average for the Tennessee area. And it's been difficult. I believe that we're going to be fine in opening them. I don't want to take any pressure off of the contractors by giving them encouragement that they'll have an extension, because there's no extension for rain days provided in the specifications that they're under contract to. It has delayed us some, but they're struggling and they're picking the time up at this time to get them open on time.
Well, this amendment asks the county commission to transfer the $312,655 in funds remaining from the sale of the excess Gurley property to the building program to help fund the middle school shortfall. Our total shortfall is $1,166,790. And it was caused by the changes that the city of Murfreesboro required when the school system applied for permits for these two middle schools. The amendment, in order to fund the balance of the $1,166,790, the amendment also requests that $104,294 remaining in the Rockdale Middle School project be transferred. We have $20,193 remaining in the Siegel High irrigation project. Savings from Brown's Chapel, $287,040. $19,820 remaining in the Christiana Elementary renovation project, and $422,788 in the future high school budget, which we had there to use toward architect's fees in order to fund this nearly $1.2 million shortfall.
Motion from Commissioner Jernigan, thank you.
I'll second it, but did Ms. Nolan want to include these other?
Yes, I was gonna
minuscule
ask, can we,
Yeah.
along with that, clean up any of those
Now,
stray?
Are these all schools though? We can't take court center money. 60
No, but she'll
cents.
take care of this.
No, that's six, not,
No.
not the 60
No,
cents.
not the 60 cents,
But
all
those
the-
other small ones that she mentions, that,
Yeah.
Can we get a little more explanation on the shortfalls and the
Sure.
problem here and why we're in this predicament? I mean, it's all school money, but then again, you know, it seems like there's good deeds on, working very frugal in a school here that's open. You got, you know, this much money left. Now we're having to take care of a situation that we've got a shortfall on.
Well-
None of our doing. Add that to your, this is none of our doing.
I asked these gentlemen here. I appreciate it.
I feel so strong about this. This is none of our doing.
He just told you what this for the permits and all the stuff from the mother, but we understood it. How much
All
fun
right.
it would be.
Since they will not answer and you're answering then, why didn't you, check on these permits and these, all these things that you got a shortfall on then and make sure it's in your bid package when you bring it to get funded?
Well, we were under the assumption that all of that was moving correctly.
Mr. Clark.
Let me respond to
Thank you,
that
sir.
question. You know, in the buildings that we have built, we have been very successful in saving money and coming out of the hole. We have retained most of our contingencies after the bid date, and during the construction we would have to pull out a few things out of contingency for change orders and that type of thing. We always had a pretty good contingency left after we got the buildings done. When we estimated this building, it was estimated just like we estimate the rest of our buildings. And I think at that point the school board had decided that we would not get a building permit from the city. So we proceeded with the numbers we had. As this went on, and as y'all will recall, we were late in getting this passed. We went out and started almost immediately on construction on those jobs without a permit.
Was that not in the county at that time?
It was.
Had it been annexed into the city?
It was in the county at that time.
So you didn't need a permit?
Well, we didn't need a permit, but we needed sewer. And the city told us at that time, and there's a law at the city, basically it's in their code or in their statute, that says unless your property is in the city, you can't get city sewer.
Unless you request annexation.
Or get a waiver. Well, they would not give us a waiver, so we had to be annexed. They would not proceed with the annexation until Mr. Gill carried to the board a letter and got approval to buy a permit. Once we bought the permit, or they got the letter that said we would buy the permit, then the city carried it to annexation to the council, got it annexed, and then we proceeded with construction. We went down and we started submitting plans at that time. Plans went through the review. We had several meetings down there, several rotations of these plans through review. We ended up getting a site permit first. And the city had actually put a stop work order on our construction office jobs. And at that point, since the board was in agreement that we would get a permit, we purchased a permit. We had to if we wanted sewer, or we were going to end up in a mess with having our buildings that didn't meet the requirements of the city, plus no sewer service when we got them built. So all of these costs are related to the construction costs to meet the city's codes on the plans that we're not usually used to dealing with. And as I said earlier, all the buildings that we built in the past have come within our budget. We've had a little bit of money left over. Unfortunately, we on this particular job, we are meeting the city's requirements, and it's costing us more money. And there's several reasons for that. That's all the iterations of reviews, meeting their requirements, and it's right, wrong, or indifferent. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, the permit fees themselves, yes, they're substantial, but that's not nearly the biggest component. You have to look at sewer, stormwater, water, road, turning lanes, all of that infrastructure is outside of their normal, quote, bid package. That I even see one here from TDOT that required substantial $136,000. So there are a lot of infrastructure, quote, off-site kinds of costs that have really added to this difficulty that was not known when they actually bid the actual project with their general contractor.
Well, and to me, Gary, you can explain it better than I can, but one of the examples that really hit me was the change in the turn lanes. We had state approval.
We had state approval to cut Highway 41, and of course, when we started dealing with the city, we ended up having to jack and bore it and go in under it. That added the cost.
And extend the lane.
And extend the lane at that. So that added cost. There's all kind of costs related to it. And then, on top of that, you have the added cost of the design fees that it takes to go back and redesign this stuff. So there's $80,000 added approximately to each job for just design fees for all the consultants redoing things.
This Elrod storm, $75,000. This is budget, and your city had more lanes, $55,000. You saying those two things were in the budget, or not?
We have the $75,000 that I put in there for Elrod is I'm not sure that we are actually going to have to spend all of that money. But we are having to make some changes down on Mr. Elrod's property for easement down there. So that's what's resolved. What was the other one?
I just seen the fact what that was in the budget for. The city had more land. That's what it says.
Landscaping.
Well, it's got landscaping up here, 64,000 up here in landscaping. So that's additional landscaping is 55,000 more.
Yeah, we.
So you got $110,000 or $20,000 in landscaping.
All one school.
Right. That's a requirement, and you know, I don't know what to say other than if we want to complete the buildings and hook up to the sewer and meet their requirements, we got to do it.
Oh, I understand. I mean, I understand being backed up in the corner, and we got to do, you know, what the city wants us to do. The problem is, you know, I thought the city was wanting to turn over a new leaf and wanting to work with the county, and the county working with the city on this, and I don't know if they actually have or not. You know, we're working with you with a smile now and giving you another $1 million bill, basically.
Well, listen, if you know what Mr. Clardy said, they didn't have a set of these plans, so they'd already started construction. So, you know, if we could have known about these a bit more in advance than we did, even though we don't want to do them, we would have known about them, and they could have put them in the budget, and they'd have known this.
The
Yeah, they
city's
have
done
worked
that
with
a
us. We've
fair
built
amount.
several roads together now in a partnership. They put in $600,000 on tennis courts that are gonna help support our school system, so I think we're working together.
Do we have the property to put in a sand filter system on either one of those schools and not put sewer in?
No, not really. The high school area out there, the Buchanan would be, it would mess the high school plans up.
What about the Elrod property?
The Elrod property is, if it were purchased, I mean, we only have enough for the ball field and the middle school. And then he also donated some property to us for the road back there, but that's all that we own. Basically, we're filling that up pretty much the way it is.
What would it cost to buy more property in that general area? Would it be less than the sewer cost here and the annexation and the changes?
It's,
I don't know, there may or may not be property there available, I'm just asking.
You're gonna travel over on Buchanan, he'll tell you too, the middle school, the grammar school is gonna have to be replaced next year or the next. I think
I'm
you
not
just,
talking about the Buchanan.
well, on the
He said
Oakland
there
side,
wasn't
if you
any
go
there.
over and look, ain't nothing but rock on it. You've been through it. I don't
It
know where you
would,
could even
it
put a
may
drainage.
be very difficult down there in that bottom to find enough property to put a sand filter in on for the drain lines. Plus, you're getting real close down there to 100-year floodplain. And then the floodway actually comes up on that property. So it'd be very difficult to do.
The permitting process on a step system is an extremely lengthy process also, and I would say, being we're here in December, hoping to open a school in August, I think at this point in the game, we couldn't get that done, even if there were the soils there. And we're annexed now.
Right, we're in the city
In
now,
the
so
city
we
now,
would still
so-
have to be under their requirements, and they might actually not let us put one in down.
We might want to remember that in the future when we're planning on hooking up the sewer. We do have to get a permit unless we get some rules changed.
They go over and look at Brown Chapel, notice they're putting in that system for a system. Any way you can get sewer, you need to get it. It's something else over there.
And we did have the concern if we did not get the permits and work was stopped on the jobs, we lose our bid prices and everything else, and we could wind up with a cost higher than this near $1.2 million.
I think, you know, out of my department, you will not, if there's anything to do with the city, you will see that included in the budget, if nothing else, as a side item. We've been very forthright, very straightforward, and very transparent in everything we've done. And it's one of those things that once we had to meet the city's requirements, just the construction costs associated with that is what you see on the paper.
So all we're getting here is the amendments off these other schools here, the leftover money, plus the transfer of the $312,000 off the Gurley property. What does that get them to? That covers it in whole?
And I would just say that, through the school board and the county commission cooperation, Mr. Guild, for instance, just the Gurley property, making that money on that has actually been a blessing because it's contributed to help us so that we didn't actually have to go somewhere else to, find the money. So I think there's been good planning all the way around on this.
Well, absolutely. There's just 900,000, so to speak, of tax dollars, or that you're up against the wall and you got to do it, or it ain't gonna happen, and that's what puts a bad taste in everybody's mouth. Is that
It's almost
when you
1.2.
well, you got 300,000 coming out of the Gurley property sale, so that's what I was taking it off.
I was very grateful when Lisa reminded me about that $312,000, because I was not coming up with $1.2 million.
Yeah, but when you, I know in future thoughts, well, when we sell the Gurley property, well, when that closes, well, when we get that money, we've got other plans
Oh, absolutely.
for that money. And that money is for other parts of the school, or whether it's for the high school down there, or whatever other school we're gonna do, and, well, that's thrown out the window. Or not,
Well,
it's not out the window, it's
not really
next door here.
Thrown out the window, what it is, it's helping us to establish seats that we need. And it's helping us to also rebalance the socioeconomics of Central Middle, so that those students and the county school system can all contribute to meet the scores and things that we need throughout the system to meet state requirements. So, it's not like throwing it away. It's going for a good cause, because we all have the same interest, and that is to get our children educated and make sure that they all enter the real world on a level playing field.
Well, I understand that. Business is business. It just doesn't, it's not that warm and fuzzy feeling you should have, going into the end of this project here, or in the middle of this project, with a blindsided, and if it was me or you, building a house or building a building, and you throw another $1.2 million on top of it, we're toast. Thank goodness we've got this overruns on these other projects here that we can, gather the funds up, pay for it, and go on. But like I say, you don't get the warm and fuzzies on this thing, though.
One of our other, or one of the other things that has gone through our mind in this whole process is there will be a lot of City of Murfreesboro residents in these two schools.
Oh, absolutely.
Who are paying through their parents their share.
And they should. It's in the city.
The information up here to this committee and presented, well, we'd all know. I think they've done a good job up this point, and I think we just need to move on. We know we gotta do it. We may not like it, but that's the way I see it. We could sit here and talk about it all night, it ain't gonna change it.
We do have a motion and a second. Do we need further discussion?
That is our choice, it's not the city of Gwinnett.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen. Commissioner Jernigan. Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Looking, yes.
Commissioner Sandlin.
No.
Commissioner Schaefer. Commissioner Ely.
Yes.
Before we move on, and typically when we move the monies from school to school, we don't typically move that to commission. Really, the only thing to me that needs to go to commission is allocating the proceeds from the Gurley property. That's $312,665.
So that we're not confused Thursday night.
Because typically within projects, from one project to another, it stops here. But this, when you sold the property was in the name of the county, not the schools. We've just parked the money in the schools. So
Well, the other amendment we did right before that don't need to go.
that doesn't go either. That typically stops right here.
Are you saying then that we don't need to let the full commission know what the total cost of this project is?
Now,
or will that be
probably in part of it, but the resolution really is to assign those proceeds of the Gurley property to the project.
Madam Chairman, I'll change my vote to yes if I can at this point. I'm just a little irritated at the procedure on it and the outcome, but, I mean, you're behind the 8 ball, you gotta do it, but I can change my vote at the full commission, but I'll just go ahead and go unanimous here. I don't like it, Toby.
No, I understand.
I don't like it.
In terms of, your comment, Commissioner Schaefer, will this entire packet be given to each commissioner?
Typically, you don't,
Do we?
but I think we could,
Usually just the amendments that we do.
but if you, I mean, could you put in the
Just make
body of
sure
the
that-
resolution that those are increases in, you know,
When everybody gets a copy of the budget minutes.
That's true.
They'll get it
If
then.
it'll be in the minutes. That's a good point, yeah, Commissioner Jordan, thanks.
I
That's-
guarantee we'll
I
get
just
a
wanna make
question
sure.
on this on the floor, so, you know,
But you're saying the resolution shall.
and I would be close by.
well, I was wondering, maybe in the body, you could say that they're going to increase the cost of the Whitworth, Buchanan, and the Oakland Middle by those two,
By the 1.1.
or the 532 and the 364, and you're going to, you know, whereas you're going to move money from other projects.
That's
And
what I was trying to prepare for.
I hope we can move past this.
I'd like to
Commissioner
ask,
Schaefer.
Mr. Sandberg a question. Well, you were gonna look into see if you could possibly get us a comparison, with other school districts in Middle Tennessee?
I've been working on that. As a matter of fact, I have that pretty much put together, and I think I'm due at the commission this month to give an update on some building projects. So I'll try to include that. I haven't reviewed it yet. It's taken several weeks to get everyone to prod people to get their figures in. I'm going to actually share that information back to them, but I haven't reviewed it. So I'll try to get that in on the commission meeting if that's okay.
Mr. Sandvik, Mr. Clardy, do you have anything else that you need to bring before this committee? Thank you very much. Thank
what do
you.
you think, Lane? Rose, what do you think?
Are you comfortable with that?
I mean, I'll add to it, I guess. That's what you're doing.
You all can work on that.
What? I
You
just-
move those little numbers around to that.
Yeah.
Later.
Yes.
I didn't,
What
I
they said we were
was
gonna
talking
talk
later, I
about
didn't
next
understand
month.
much about the $2, that $2, I didn't know what you were talking about, but I'll.
The $100 and $170.
Yeah.
I mean, I think,
Just include that in the minute.
Yeah, because that was part of Commissioner Jordan's thing.
Those plans should have been submitted at the time we bid our project.
Okay, gentlemen, we're ready for item number 11 on our agenda, and you need to turn, please, to section 9 in your notebooks. Mayor Burgess and Mrs. Nolan, if you will help us with this, we need a recommendation authorizing county mayor to execute a contract with the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities regarding paying for mental health evaluation and treatment services for defendants charged with misdemeanors. Mayor Burgess, section 9.
Yes, the state passed a law that is pushing the cost of these mental health evaluations coming out of General Sessions Court back onto the counties. And this is an agreement here whereby they're giving us a favorable rate, quote, even though it's something we haven't been paying for here to date, so.
Not just General Sessions, but criminal
Okay.
and circuit
It's
too.
largely, but most all of them are coming out of General
General
Sessions,
Sessions.
yeah. So it's all of,
Yes.
so,
Yes.
What's
unless-
our potential from our normal years of history or something? How much
Well-
is it gonna cost us?
I don't know, because I don't know how many we've had evaluated previously, because we haven't been keeping up with that since we
Elaine.
didn't pay for it.
Elaine has made contact with Eloise, and you can figure about 100 a year. But the problem is that what we don't know, if you flip over and you see their cost of services in the contract, flip over.
Page 2 and 3.
This is the cost of their services.
The basic per day amount is $450. So
Right, that's a per day,
So,
per service,
we
but
don't
then
know what
you've
it's
got
one-day
some,
service or-
a
Says
per
here between
service.
706 and 1330.
That's if you don't approve the contract.
Right.
If we approve the contract, we get the
Discounted
Favorable
rate.
rates.
yes,
Discounted rate.
the preferred rate.
Not only an unfunded mandate, it's also a twist in there. isn't it?
Yes,
Beginning of the next fiscal
No, it's
year.
already started. It started this July 1st.
Surprise.
But we didn't anticipate, or we don't have any money, so we're just having to.
We'll have to, yeah, we don't have any money
No.
budgeted for this.
We don't have any
The state
bills
doesn't
yet
have any money
either.
That's why we get it.
They were, I mean, the judges were concerned this was gonna be a lot, but it's, my last report, they're not having nearly as many of these requested as they thought they might. So they're probably a bit more attentive to the issue that's gonna cost us money, so they're being I'm sure, only doing this as they need to.
Don't recall hearing this at our original meeting, do you?
Somebody ought to question the mental health of the legislature.
Another quick, how do we know that this is the best deal for us? Have we checked
Well, if
anywhere
we
else?
don't, there is no other deal. If you don't do it, you'll
No,
pay.
I mean, why can't somebody, they're going to, why can't we contract with somebody?
Who else would we contract with? The state's the one providing these evaluations. We'd have to find somebody else that's qualified and certified to do that. Maybe there is someone out there. I don't know who
Well,
they
you
are.
know, it's worth it to look at it, I think, because it may be, it may not be. It could be. I just look at what we've seen so far. We've seen our Volkswagen law that affects only Rutherford County. We came out with the feds, then came out with the thing on the mental health. It's got to have the same amount of indemnity, or if you want to use that word, or
Commissioner,
covers.
make you some notes, our legislative will be meeting with them steering wheel in January, so
They won't have.
hit them up. Make your list.
It's retro.
But they probably have been sending a bill. We're gonna get a bill sometime. Better to get me lower.
You'll hear nothing except that.
Well, we need to do this for this year, and maybe we can find another better provider wherever they are. I'll ask some questions, but I don't know quite where to start, but we can start. Otherwise, we'll pay the 706 or the 1,313 through the state.
706.
Well, I mean,
Who
that-
actually requires this? The court requires a mental health evaluation.
The judges would order that if they see
But that'll be our local judges that would
yes,
require
it's
that.
our local judges, yes, sir. And they're very concerned about this. This troubles them, and they won't order any more than they have to.
I make a motion to go ahead and approve.
Second.
Thank you. And we're not talking about funding right now. We're just giving the mayor authorization to execute this contract. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
It won't be as much.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Yeah, aye. Yes, yes.
Commissioner Schaefer,
My conscience won't let me do it. No.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Gentlemen, we have a resolution authorizing a subordination agreement for Mr. Walter Raybon. And Mayor Burgess, we have done this before, haven't we?
Well, this is the second time around. This person has refinanced his property, for which a home improvement loan was made in 2007. And
Is this the one
I don't know where it is, but we've done this previously, and he's doing it again. The way that works, that home improvement loan, we didn't fund it, but it was funded through a grant. Every year, 20% of that home improvement loan is forgiven. 3 years have already passed, so 60% of the loan is already forgiven every year. 2 more years and it's over with and we're out of the thing. So this is really just a perfunctory kind of thing here. It doesn't do anything to our liability or our exposure. We're just accommodating this person that was able to get a grant to improve his loan in 2007.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin, seconded by Commissioner Jordan and/or Commissioner Jernigan. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Gentlemen, we do not have any documentation other than committee minutes for item number 13. And it is a recommendation coming from Public Safety and also from Property Management. Commissioner Schaefer is our representative from Public Safety, and Commissioner Bullen is our commissioner from Property Management. The motion is to approve the concept of a fallen firefighters memorial to be placed on the northwest corner of the courthouse property in conjunction with the FOP memorial, and allow Commissioner Farley to pursue the same with the design to be brought back to the committee. I'm assuming that's property management. So we are just approving the concept for this memorial and then deciding how the money will flow?
Well, right, I mean, in the whole concept, as Commissioner Shaver knows, they're gonna raise this money from private contributions, so there will be no county money. So it'll be a contribution when and if they get this done, and it'll flow through.
We have to have a permit from the city to erect this.
We might.
Gotta have a turning lane from the one memorial to the other.
Since you brought it up, we will now.
I'll make a motion. We gotta make a motion on this? I'll make a motion to approve this in concept at no cost to the county.
Commissioner Schaefer, and seconded by Commissioner P. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
It needs to be understood that nothing's going to be put on these grounds until everything's been approved, so that will not be a distraction from what else is out there.
Yes, sir.
So that whole concept of what it's going to look like, how big it's going to be, and all of that will have to be approved before it goes on the grounds.
The next item, can you believe it? We are discussing the 2010, 2011 budget calendar. That is in section 9 of your notebooks. If you will notice, Elaine has highlighted some important dates for us to look at. The April 29th meeting is to remind us that is the meeting where the mayor and the finance director will present the work that they have done with the department heads to that date. I know, when you're having fun,
They
right?
need to put that on their calendar.
So if you'll make sure that is on your calendar. The June 3rd notice, that is a deadline that we must meet. That is the requirement for publication in the newspaper. And then we do have the public hearing already scheduled for June 15th, and notice that time is 7 p.m. And then, of course, our last meeting where the entire commission will ratify the proposed budget is June 28th. And I have been reminded that that is a Monday, which is a little unusual, but because of the way the dates are on the calendar, this is the way it had to be.
On June 28th?
Yeah, 1 o'clock over
We'll be done.
This gives us 2 more days in that month in case we don't finish on that date. 2 more days.
Yeah, but I said, you have the 25th, can't we have it?
That changes
Yes,
all.
We
the rest of
they
the
tried
schedule.
that,
Everything
and
else
with
has to
all the other
change.
requirements, it just
I'm gonna bring
didn't
my
work.
sleeping bag and,
All right, gentlemen, this is the proposed budget calendar.
You need a motion? Motion to approve the calendar?
Thank you, Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Under other business,
Wait, before you get to that
Oh,
one,
okay.
I
You
had
have
this
something?
one. Yes, this is one that we had on and then we took it off, but now the mayor has got the information from the courts. This is to approve the mayor accepting the grant. It's ARA money from the Byrne Grant Program, courtroom security and technology grants, $4,935, and then by the commission comes, we'll have the budget amendment ready.
I had it ready.
She does have it ready.
She
We
had
just
it
don't
ready.
have
They
it
took
for you.
off. I didn't know they took it off. And I had it.
And we didn't know we had this.
thank you, Commissioner Sandlin, and seconded by Commissioner P. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Several of you have mentioned a summary of the audit findings, and I have asked our finance director, Mrs. Nolan, just to briefly go through those with us, please.
Yes, and we'll just start at the top. The first one, the ambulance service, they're not issuing receipts for all collections. Their software, they have issues with their software not being able to spit out this receipt. They're in the process of trying to get that changed. The finding kind of motivated the software developer a little faster. The self-insurance fund had a net deficit. You already took care of that. In probably August, we moved 300,000 into that. Remember doing that, we took care of it. On the juvenile court clerk, as far as duties not being segregated adequately, the person who is in charge of doing the bookkeeping work occasionally would go to the counter when people were on lunch breaks. They've taken care of this by saying, he no longer can work the counter at all. So that's been taken care of. I met with the sheriff's people on the federal equitable shared funds not being channeled through the county's budgetary process. That will be coming to you sometime in February. Is that the target date? February is when we're going to we are working with the Sheriff's Department in making sure that we set that up in accordance with the federal guidelines to keep them out of trouble and us keeping out of trouble with the Department of Audit. It will be a fund similar to the drug fund. It'll work pretty much that way. The difference is where on the drug fund, where we estimate revenues coming in, we can't do that with this fund. We will treat the money coming in like grants. We'll only budget those when we know we have them in hand. That will be really the only difference between the two. And then we've had the last funding for several years, and we'll have it until the county adopts a central system of purchasing. Someday.
Any further discussion? That's for your information. Is there anything else that needs to come before this committee? Okay, gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.